Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a bit, I am off to check out the new animated film, The Garfield Movie. So what's this movie about? It's about Garfield. I mean, what did you think it was going to be about? Odie? No, seriously, the story is kind of an origin story, actually. It tells the story of Garfield and how he finds John Arbuckle and so on. One night, a poor little kitten is abandoned by his father, and then he finds a nice man at a local Italian restaurant who feeds him pizza and lasagna. The two become best friends and go home to live a great life together. Fast forward a few years later, that deadbeat dad returns to get Garfield involved in some kind of cat crime. At least that's what it seems like in the trailer. Cat crime. Or such. I don't know, man. It's a Garfield movie. Well, anyways, I enjoy Garfield. I do. This film does look like it relies pretty heavily on, physical humor, a lot of slapstick physical humor, which is fine. I'm not saying anything bad about that. I like a good slapstick, but for me, Garfield has always been a very dry sarcasm kind of thing, and I always enjoyed that. I've been a fan of Garfield since I was a kid. I used to always pick up Garfield comics at the Scholastic book fair. Well, anyway, the old book fair when I was in elementary school. I always pick up Garfield books or any copies of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, 1, 2, 3, whatever it might have been. And that was pretty much it. If they didn't have the Scary Stories, I bought Garfield. Yeah, that's it. I love Garfield. In fact, here, check this out. Charming Amy and I actually have a copy of the Garfield holiday specials. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on all the seasons of Garfield and Friends. I have a lot of fond memories of watching that show with my sisters back in the late 80s, I believe it was. And it doesn't seem to be in like a complete series. You have to buy all the seasons separately if you could find them. Something like that. So it's kind of a bummer on the old Garfield front. It is streaming, but you know me with the physical media, right? I like to have a copy. But you know what? It's enough of me sitting here yammering on about my love of the orange cat Garfield. It's time for me to get out the door because it's time for me to go see The Garfield Movie. Welcome back, just getting home, and guys, I enjoyed this film. It was a lot of fun. It was a perfectly good family film. So let's get this started, shall we? Let's start off with the negatives, then move into the positives to end the video on the ever so important high note. Now with this in the negatives, I would like to say that this is a perfectly acceptable family film. I could sit here and nitpick the ever-living hell out of this movie if I really wanted to, but there's absolutely no point in doing that. Because at the end of the day, this movie is just supposed to get you to forget about life for a little while and just have fun with the kids. And I feel that the movie does deliver in that. Now, if you're expecting that dry wit, sarcasm that you normally find in the comic Garfield, you're not going to find too awful much of that here. There are moments that you get that Garfield comic strip kind of humor, but most of the movie is sight gags and physical comedy. If that's not your bag, you might not find a lot of humor in this. But then again, you're probably not going to go see a Garfield animated film either. Now, the story itself is really kind of interesting because what do you do with a comic strip, right? What is it, like 8 or 10 panels, and that tells its little story? You get your gag, you get your joke, and then you move on to something else. You pick up Calvin and Hobbes after that. But how do you tell an entire full-length film off of Garfield, off of a short little comic strip? Why you make it an action-adventure film? Well, more importantly, you make it a crime caper film, because that's what this movie is. It goes from just being like an origin story of Garfield into a full-blown crime caper. And I actually enjoyed that, because how in God's green earth are you supposed to keep me interested for that long when all you're doing is just doing time after time, gag after gag with Garfield? In this way, you get to see Garfield out of his element, out in the world, doing some different things. Honestly, this film was less like something you would find in the comic strips. It was more like an action film that had Garfield placed inside of it. So again, if that's not what you're looking for, if you just want Garfield from the comics, this might not be your jam, but also too, it's just a family film, you know, and at the end of the day, did you get entertained? Did you enjoy it? Did the kids have a good time? Because that's who this is marketed at. This is marketed for the kids. So maybe this one's not for you, but I will tell you that this film is leaps and bounds better than that Bill Murray movie that came out in the early 2000s. Well, both of those movies that came out in the early 2000s. So let's move into the positives. The first thing I want to talk about is the animation style. I really enjoyed the animation style in this film. It was almost like a realistic, cartoony type of style. Like when you got up close and you really saw the character models, your fur looked very realistic. There were barbs that were caught up in there. It looked very tactile. Is that a good way to put it? It really looked like you could just run your fingers through Garfield, Odie's, and Vic fur, and it would feel like something. It felt very solid. There were moments in the film where the animation was so well done and has really good depth and so on. It looked like claymation figures up on the screen. It really did have a very good depth to it. The 3D animation was very well done. In the scenes where it needed lots of great texture and detail, they had it. And in scenes where you didn't really need it, it wasn't there. It just did a great job of blending what you would expect from the comics and what you would expect from a modern 3D animated film. The voice acting in this film is also outstanding. We have talents like Chris Pratt as Garfield, Samuel Jackson is playing his father, Vic. We also have Ving Rhames, Cecily Strong, Nicholas Hoult, and there's a few other names in there too that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But the film is loaded with some really great... Oh, that's right, I forgot. Of course, the biggest celebrity of them all, Snoop Dogg, is in this film, which I seriously think they brought Snoop Dogg in just for another gag, because he has such a recognizable voice. I swear to God, he says like 4 lines in the entire movie. He just shows up. So a guy named Dog could be in a movie about cats. I totally think that's why. I can almost see this sitting around like, you know, the table in some corporate office somewhere, and they're like, we need a fun gag for this movie, guys. What can we think of? Well, how about this? How about someone whose name is Dog, but it's a cat movie, and everyone knows his name in the real world is Dog. All right, get Dog the Bounty Hunter on the line. Oh, wait a minute, kids don't like that guy. What about Snoop Double G? That's all I could think of. That's the only thing I could think of, the reason why he got put into this movie. But otherwise, all in all, guys, this film was a really fun time at the cinema. This is a good time. Get the kids together, pack them up in the old minivan, SUV, sedan, what have you. Motorcycle. Wait, no, don't put your kid on the motorcycle. I'm sure there's safety issues with that up the wazoo. Otherwise, you're doing fine there. Just load them up, take them to the old Cineplex for the matinee. Yeah, folks, we're frugal here at the Film Geek. Or in my area, we still have drive-ins. And I used to have a blast taking the kids out to the drive-in for a fun family film like this. We'd be out underneath the stars, take out some lawn chairs, open up a big cooler of perfectly fine soda. It's family-friendly time, guys, and just have a really good time as a family watching a movie out under the stars. And that's that kind of movie. That's the kind of movie that we have here. All around solid fun. So, okay, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for checking out. Oh, I forgot one little thing before you go away. I wanted to show this off. We went to the early matinee. It was like the lazy Sunday matinee, and we were given little Garfield squishies as a gift. So I was going to do just a real quick unboxing of my promotional Garfield squishy. Perfectly squishy in all ways. Great stuff there. All right, well, anyways, guys, thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.